Today we are going to be giving every single image we make a lot more style and make it look a lot less AI generated. This is a fantastic LoRa that you absolutely want to plug into the LoRa stack that you probably possess. In fact, this is the thing that if you ever look at civitai.com's amazing artwork, it's always one of the things typically there because it kind of has a really good painted, drawn art style kind of look, while still also keeping some realism there so you still get the beautiful structure that you want. So you spend less time adding in flaws, although that can work to make something look less AI generated, but it's kind of tedious, and prompting to kind of get that same effect is also incredibly tedious, whereas there's just this one LoRa that you hit install, you add it to the queue, and you set it and forget about it, and it just kind of always gives you that nice edge when it comes to AI art. Hence why most people just have it, like I said, in their LoRa stack, and they just kind of set it up, forget about it, and now you're a mile ahead, destined to forget what is even doing all that heavy lifting. Alas. All right, so now that we are at Civitai, we're going to want to make sure we're at the Illustrious XL one because that is the model that we're using. We are also going to be using this in conjunction with Perfect Illustrious, but the one that uses it way better is, of course, Plant Milk, which has like already a lot of this stylization in it, so it just really is able to maximize it. But alas, we're going to download it. As we can see, this model is good for Illustrious. That's what it's based off of because that's what we've selected here. Fantastic. We're going to make sure we want to copy this trigger word. Copy, you're going to want to download it, throw it into your LoRa folder. So in order to set the style, it's going to be really easy. You probably want to make a brand new one. So you're going to hit duplicate. You're going to name it whatever you want. You're going to select the model that you want. We're going to be using Plant Milk because that one I think works the best. And it's one of the two I suggested that you download. Alas, then we have our LoRa's. We have Smooth Boost, which I was just like adding because it gives good contrast. And then we have the brand new one right here, which we just selected. We're going to have to drop down this bar right here. And then we're going to paste that trigger word right there. Now we don't have to bother with increasing the prompt weight, but we can still do that if we want. We can also do that through this as well. Just to kind of get more of that styling that we are kind of hoping for with this. Alas, so now everything's in play. It should be totally ready to rip. All right, so now, one more thing I forgot to mention at the top. I've shown LoRa's that cover art styles before, but this one is way more applicable to everything. Hence why this is kind of just something that people have in their stack order because it doesn't move the needle in a drastic way, but it does move the needle enough. It's kind of like lighting or texturation or something like that. It applies this like soft, gentle touch, which just immensely stacks on top of itself when you have a bunch of LoRa's doing exactly that. And that usually creates a really beautiful effect and not a really severe effect, if that makes any sense. So how I wanted to show you guys this, to show you how much scope and like brevity that this actually has, is I came up with 3 different prompts that hopefully will articulate the kind of insane scale that this thing can kind of reach, okay? Let's get into it. So this was the first one that we ended up doing, which was really nice. Basically, it's a masterpiece, best quality. We're trying to basically cull all the bad options. We have Girl 1, scenery, serene expression, i.e. I was trying to create this like soft, really warm vibe. Again, light streaming in, golden hour, these are all things that will signal to the AI labels that signify like sun, warmth, things like that. Cozy room, potted plants, really nice. I will say, I probably would put one that looks like, add some sort of like naturalistic scale because she does look kind of gigantic. Like while sitting down, she's table height. She's a giant basically. But we'll show off like the AI basically having more runs at this, and it happened to have one that was a lot nicer. Hence why it's always nice to do batches of 3. Overall, I think this looks fantastic, but I will say we will eventually show off the difference between this model being on and being off. So just hold tight. We'll get to that in a minute. But this was another prompt that I ended up using, which is this one right here. Oh, sorry, this one right here, which is basically more of like a dark, gritty kind of noir vibe, more grounded, more dark. Again, masterpiece, best quality, usually don't change. They're usually the thing that we're going to leverage the most. Again, mafia male boss, mid-40s, a stern face, scarred over eye, wearing a trench coat, things like that. And we have things like raining city, smoking a cigarette, shadows, cinematic shadows. All of these things end up just looking really cool. And again, look absolutely awesome as a whole. Again, if we wanted to have like touch this up even more, we could just segment this, basically select this little thing, and this will give a lot more detail to this because it's a lot more pixel density in there. Anyways, but you can see there's rain, there's this whole type of really cool vibe. And again, if we wanted to like get more detail, we could actually zoom in to the eyes. You guys can see that they kind of get sloppy around here. But they are able to get the scar there. But again, if I just zoomed in on this and did a quick pass, in fact, we might as well just do that just to show you guys what essentially that can be, what I'm referring to, which is this. So now if we don't want to hit fill, we want to hit refine basically. So we can see we went from this to essentially this, which is much more gritty. Same thing with this one. That one actually looks pretty sick, and I think it works pretty well too. So if we wanted to get more context and detail, we would basically crop it all like that, so it has more pixels to work with and looks a lot more detailed. We can do the same thing with stuff like this if we ever did want to improve it. But alas, hopefully that makes sense and that is clear. And this is the third one we made. It is just a lot more vibrant, a lot more colorful. It's a lot more playful, etc. It's very Pixar adjacent, warm, happy golden retriever dog, etc. Very nice fur, all that stuff. If you look at our prompt over here, you guys can see that we have masterpiece, all that stuff stays the same, and then we basically segment based on our subjectation, which is the joyful golden retriever. We have more descriptive words such as like vibrant color, highly detailed fur and textures and things like that. Very, very fun across the board. But now let's look at the alternative version of this without the LoRa applied, essentially. So we can see that this was the first option. This was with the LoRa applied. You guys can see all the kind of like shading and the texture. You'll really notice things about how soft everything is and how it blends together. Everything doesn't feel like sharp and really detailed. It kind of all melts in this really cohesive way. So if we actually look at it without it, this one, you can see is not like that at all. It's much more sharp. It's much more, yeah. So this one is using Perfect Illustrious and it's using Smooth Boost, but nothing else. And I think it's kind of obvious the level of change that this adds. Again, it's just more soft. It's a lot less intense and it handles lighting and like blending exceptionally differently. Which is really, really cool. Again, you can see this difference in the plant, and I just think it's like, it's not even in the same zone. It's so much prettier. I find this one much more appealing than this, which just looks kind of like messy. Even the carpet looks kind of, yeah. And then this, significantly more soft, more blended, more muted tones, which is actually a good thing. Anyways, if we go here to this one, this was this one without the model in effect, which in this one, actually, it looks quite nice without it. So it's not that everything works better with the LoRa, but I think a lot of it does. For example, we have this compared to this. Yeah, I still like this one quite a bit because I think it looks less AI generated. It looks more like blended, more cohesive, less harsh. And everything here looks really harsh and punchy. And once again, if we look here, you guys can see that we are using Smooth Boost and we are using Perfect Illustrious Baseline, which is that one. So that's what that is. And then we have this one, which this one looks, again, it just looks more, it looks too perfect. The problem with Perfect Illustrious, it looks too perfect. But if you look at this one, this one, to me, that looks a lot more natural, a lot more, the lighting looks good, everything looks still bright. Again, it still handles that like vibrancy really well, except it's a lot more muted, a lot more soft, and a lot less sharp, which this, again, looks like that has that digital baked in vibe, and this one seems like it's more artistic or more drawn, things like that, shell shaded to some extent, all that. I think I'm just a sucker for shell shaded things, so I'm kind of biased, very much so. And again, same thing you guys can see here, we're running just Smooth Boost and of course Perfect Illustrious as the model. And then I just wanted to just use the same prompts that we were using, but just like do a lot more of them so we can see how the AI is interpolating everything and just get more understandings of everything. So again, beautiful. I'm happy with this one. Again, I really like the plants, and the hair to me is really nice. And we got this one. She is missing a leg. Don't worry about it. Also, I will say the scale is what's eaten. Not so good with these. And then, of course, we have this one, which this one looks a little bit better as far as the gigantism situation going on. And this one I think looks actually the best out of the lot because it just looks nice and peaceful. I don't know what this is, but yes, cushion something. Got it. And overall, just a really warm vibe. And then we have this one, which is more dark and gritty. Again, it's still going for the same overall atmosphere, which is nice. But yes, and again, it's so much nicer to basically lock into some of these and give greater context, which we can always do. I'll probably show you actually that. But before that, this is again the same thing, same dog, different situations, but it kind of ultimately understands what we're trying to go for. And of course, this one I think is honestly the best. He's just like such a good boy. So really quick, if we just pick one of the ones that actually worked really, really well, such as, which one do we want? So let's go with that one. Let's go with that one. We'll go ahead and apply that one. Once again, all we need to do for things that we wanted more detail with is just this. We'd probably go like this. We want a good bit of context cues. Sorry, we'll do that. This doesn't look very good, so we will go ahead and get some of that going because this is a lot of detail work. And we'll do this one as well. And now we'll hopefully be able to get a little bit better context for both of these, or detail I should say. So essentially by lowering this to refine or a lower strength, we are basically adding a little bit of pixels, a little bit of static, And ultimately we're not having it render all of this whole page, which is a lot of, it's basically sharing too much of its resources. It's actually not the best way to phrase it. It's kind of like what essentially we're doing is something similar to this. So if we go down here, we can see resolution. If we increase that, that will increase the level of resolution within the pixel density that's allowed. Essentially, all AI art is basically using patterns through pixels, so we're essentially adding more pixels for it to be able to use more patterns to emulate through. Hence why eyes and hands always go to shit, is because it doesn't have enough pixel density usually to apply the appropriate pattern, if that makes any sense. So we go ahead and look at the second attempt. It was pretty good. I don't love the face so much, so we can actually render this a few more times. I'm not in love with the face. I'm not sure if I like this one either. Yeah, this one's not so good over here too. Let's render one more time. In fact, we can do the thing that I just mentioned and increase this to that. Do one of those at a high resolution, then drop that back down to 5 so we don't forget and have to wait for an hour for it to finish rendering. Anyways, and then this is the third one that we did, which is we increased the resolution so it has even more detail to work off of, which looks exponentially better. Yeah, ultimately, the reason why we got such a better effect with this one is because we went over here and drastically increased the amount of pixels it had to work with. You can also just increase your entire canvas, but that tends to be a little costly. But you guys can see how much nicer that looks like when you have actually increase the pixel density. You can see his face looks exponentially better, and then this looks amazing compared to the slop that was that. So a lot of times when you're doing detail work, this is the kind of thing that can actually move the needle. One thing I want to show you really quick while this is going, let's take the one that we enjoyed the most, which was I think this one. I wanted to show you guys how it reacts with Perfect Illustrious using this model, and we just want to see how it interacts. In my experience, again, Plant Milk was the best, but I'm curious how to see how these other ones react. Typically, when something says it's the Illustrious base model, I tend to find it works really well. And if it works well for, like, for instance, Plant Milk, I think it usually can work with a lot of other ones, but it kind of depends on what that model is based off of. So sometimes a model is heavily based on, like, perfect digital looking art, which is what Perfect Illustrious tends to aim towards, I believe. So I think it's probably a bad idea to use that one because it's already, we're trying to get away from the perfect nature of everything, which is good, but you can see it starts to kind of fight and wants to give you that like hyper realistic look, and it kind of clashes. So that's why I would highly advise more of an artistic looking model, such as Plant Milk. I think Plant Milk honestly is the one that works the best for this, and Plant Milk honestly is just I kind of think an undervalued LoRa or model. But again, these are the kind of art styles you can do. These are the prompts were used. Insane, but absolutely breathtaking. Some of these, they look fantastic, really vibrant, really unique, really good style. The shell shaded thing works so well here. Again, this is such a good model to get, and you can even have some fun anime things if you wanted that. But yes, to me, I think this is the model that just comes alive when it comes to making something look a lot more grounded, a lot more realistic. And again, for things like this, you can see that they're kind of turned to mush. That's why I wanted to pause and show you how you can actually like bring detail back into that by increasing pixel count and highlighting that specific area so that it only has to focus its attention on that, and then you just blend things as it goes, right? I think that's a really, really good way to go about it. But alas, hopefully I sold this fantastic LoRa. If you would like it, go to the description down below. It will take you to our school community. Post your information there. I just have to keep it, I have to do it that way so there's not an abundance of bots. And I don't want people randomly messaging you or taking your email for granted and all these kind of things. So we have to do it that way. It probably takes a day to get in, I'm sorry. Again, there's a bunch of stuff there that I hope is helpful. A bunch of free resources, a whole course on how to install everything, and a really helpful thing that I made called the Artist Arsenal, which essentially just has a bunch of things. It has a framework that allows you to understand how to prompt and how to segment your prompts. It also has, of course, the thing I use all the time, which is called the Prompt Forge, which is just an absolute stack of representations for keywords or labels, followed by what they actually do to your image, so you can actually find out what you want and what it's going to do to your image. And then, of course, an absolutely insane amount of control nets, so you can mix and mash and have really, really complex composition by using all of those things. But alas, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you kindly for your time, and I hope you go check out our school community. Thank you kindly, and goodbye for now, my friends.